Welcome back, everyone, to Veteran Nation. And this is going to be one of our taped interviews as part of our series of talking with veterans. And we have a great veteran who's joining us today. He is a Vietnam veteran. And let's go ahead and bring him in. We've got Stephen Justus. Stephen, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing well. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for calling.
Oh, no. I appreciate you sitting down to talk with us. And, we love hearing about veteran stories because it's so important as we go forward to get, these stories out there, hear what happened to you, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you want to talk about. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started off. You can tell us, where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
Well, it just presuming I can state that I grew up without a lot of people calling in and calling me a liar. Anyway, Crescent City, California. Nobody knows where that is, and unless they're old enough to remember the big tidal wave back in 1964 that wiped out the first 5 blocks of town. That was us. I was there. Went from there to high school and off to the University of Santa Clara. And in my sophomore year, an unfortunate series of events led me to getting drafted. And I really knew nothing about Vietnam, by the way. It was early on. It was 66. And I knew nothing about really what was going on in Vietnam. It was all very new. There was some character over in Berkeley. What was his name? He was standing on a soapbox and whipping people up. I can't remember. But anyway, typical, a lot of noise. I don't know. Anyhow, there we go. I had a chance to get out of it several times, actually. Those are stories in themselves. In fact, one of them is, at least, is worth telling. When I was in Louisiana at Fort Polk, there was another young fellow there. And, at the most in any given platoon, there might be a couple of guys who had been in college. But it was not pleasant for the rest of the company to know that you'd been in college, because they were after us all the time, right? Mm-hmm. But at any rate, he was a very good fellow. I hope he runs into this so I could say to him once again, thank you, and I hope your life turned out well. But anyway, he said to me, Steve, this war is bad, this war is wrong, this war is this or that. And my parents are going to pick me up. I'm going to go AWOL. They're taking me to Canada. I told them about you, and they said, you're welcome to come along if you'd like to go to Canada. And I thought about it for a moment, and I said, well, that's a generous offer. Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing from over 50 years ago, 54, 55 years ago. That's a generous offer. But the problem is, I don't know anything about this war. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I hear all the noise out there, but I don't know. So if I were to go with you and leave, I would have to adopt that narrative. But I'd never know the rest of my life if I went out of conviction or if I went because I was a coward. And I couldn't bear the thought of being a coward. Mm-hmm. So I was drafted by my country. And I will do what I perceived as my duty. And he left. And of course, I don't even remember his name at this time. He's a nice looking young man, intelligent. So anyway, God bless you, fella. I hope it turned out for you.
Mm-hmm. And that was in 66?
That was, no, I was inducted into the United States Army January the 3rd of 67.
Okay.
So that was a little later that year. And I spent 9 months in training and 12 months in Vietnam.
Okay. Now, if you could just explain a little bit, where'd you do your basic training? Give us a little bit of impression what you thought about that.
Well, I was down at Fort Ord in the old barracks. They were old to us anyway. Um,
Probably still in use today.
well, they closed it down actually.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was January. You know, I had the power of my conviction that I should, you know, proceed to do my duty in the United States Army. And that lasted until the DI jumped on the bus when we arrived and started literally kicking us off the bus. Then I thought, perhaps I needed more information. I mean, literally kicking us out that door, grabbing us and throwing us and kicking us. And I thought, wow, this is just like being back in high school. You have to know where I came from. I mean, that's the way it was for underclassmen. But anyway, yeah, I went to Fort Ord. It was January. I remember I had a bunk. It was a lower bunk, and it was in the corner of the far end. So this was, oh God, what was it? There was an illness scare. What was it? It wasn't scarlet fever. It was
Hoof and mouth, or
no, foot and mouth. You mean?
or
Anyway,
mouth, yeah.
no, it wasn't foot and mouth disease. But anyway, the upshot was they kept every other window open. It was January in Monterey. That's where Fort Ord is, California.
Mhm.
And it's not a balmy place in Monterey, not that January. And I had these icy winds coming at me, and I came down with bronchial pneumonia.
Okay.
They shipped me off to the hospital, then shipped me back. Man, you know, nothing makes much sense in the military. I don't know who makes these decisions. But anyway, that happened to me. That weakened my lungs. That was not good. That came into play later, as a matter of fact. But then from there, I was shipped off to Louisiana. From Louisiana, I was sent to Fort Huachuca. From Huachuca, that was radio school.
You got me thinking.
So
Monterey.
we learned a lot of.
I want to say that's where Clint Eastwood was, where he spent, because he was in during Vietnam, or no, yeah, I think it was during Vietnam.
Well, he's about my age somewhere. I don't know how old Clint is, but
Yeah, it was around that time where he was a lifeguard. He didn't go anywhere in combat, but yeah.
a lifeguard.
Yeah, he was a lifeguard at the pool.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
I
I just
remember hearing the stories. Yeah, he was a lifeguard and then ended up didn't see any combat or anything like that.
well, that's okay. I mean, I like the guy. Oh, it's not like I thought everybody should, get shot up. I didn't have that wish for everybody. I do remember being in the EM club there, and I know that there were some problems there at the time, and there were some racial problems, so I understood.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come from a place where we had racial problems at all, and, we just all kind of got along or didn't get along, but it wasn't for racial reasons. Grew up with a lot of Indian kids from the reservations. They oftentimes kept to themselves, but, we had some black kids who played football with us, and, anyhow, no big deal. But, and I'm not saying this had anything to do with it, may or may not have, but typical, we're at the EM club and the generator failed. I think they fail in a periodic way. They're set to fail, kind of like our economy. Anyway, the generator failed, and all of a sudden, wham, I get clocked in the back of the head, knocks me out of my chair. Got to my feet, and I was dizzy, and the lights come back on, and there was a beer bottle, empty beer bottle laying there. Somebody had chucked it across the room and nailed me. I don't think it was personal. I think it was just general man. Yeah, anyway, I'm thinking, maybe this isn't where I should hang out in society. It's just too much like being in high school again. Anyhow, from Huachuca, I graduated at the top of that class, and they sent me to Fort Gordon, Georgia, for radio teletype school.
So you were a radio man at that point, and they're sending you to more training.
Yeah, radio man. We'd learn Morse code, this and that, and they sent me on for more training yet. So I made quite a few of those, those 4 posts, Ord, Holt, Huachuca, and then Gordon. It's the only time I got picked up by the MPs, actually. I showed up late one night. I showed up on a Saturday night. They shipped us out there by plane. And I got up the next morning and I put on my San Francisco 49ers shirt, you know, and I had some cutoffs on and wearing tennis shoes and sunglasses and went out for a walk just to look around the post. And I got picked up by a couple of MPs and they took me in there and stood me before the window, you know, with a polished brass rail. And boy, did they read me the riot act. And I hadn't been there a day. I mean, I didn't know what their rules were, but apparently you can't wear a jersey or cutoffs or tennis shoes or sunglasses. I mean, it was a rotten place. You know, and I thought, well, come let us reason together, as the scripture says. And I approached the brass bar, and I put my hands on his shiny brass bar in front of the window, looked in that sergeant's eyes, and I said, oh, well, let me explain. Oh, man, I tell you, that guy's temper took off like a rocket. He called a lieutenant out there, and they're up and down on me, and I said, Lieutenant, I just got here last night. Please, sir, cut me a break. I'm really sorry. I'm happy to polish your brass bar again, if that'll help, but I didn't come here looking for trouble. I've just been here at night in these few hours. And the guy looked at me and said, Sergeant, just tell him to get out of here. And the guy said, okay, get out of here. Don't ever do any of this again. I mean, anyway, I thought, you know, and that's pretty much an example of the military. I mean, just like, this is stupid. Although I was pretty stupid putting my hands on trying to press
story, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, that was my life in the military. Holy smoke. You can't be reasonable or sensible in the military. That's not the way it works. Anyhow, yeah, I turned down officers, OCS, 3 or 4 times. I can't remember. I was approached. I actually, and this astounds me to this day, probably everybody else in my platoon, but I came out with the highest grade in my company of that test we take at the end. Can't remember. It was the general PT test with all the yada, 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 and the bayonets and the hand grenades and jumping in a pit and bayoneting somebody and fighting. Anyway, the whole thing, right? And I got a little trophy, and I'll never forget this. I'm standing on the stage at the end with the other guys from the other companies, right? And we're standing there, and the general comes up, and we're going to have, well, excuse me, I had been an ROTC when I was first at the University of Santa Clara, and so help me, all of a sudden that little guy would get up there, and he had barked the most unusual command, and we'd all turn and start marching around, and I was sure he was saying, piss in your shoe. I was later told that was passing review. But anyway, the voices people put on to be military. Anyhow, so they were preparing their graduation to pass in review, and the general comes down the line and says, "Oh, son, congratulations on your achievement. Where are you going?" And the kid said, "I'm going to advanced weaponry systems, sir. And congratulations, son. Where are you going?" "I'm going into, this or that." "And you, son?" "I'm going off to yada, yada." He comes to me, he says, "Son, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to Fort Polk, Louisiana, down to Tigerland for infantry training." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, that's very unusual." He said, "Yes, I agree, sir." Thinking, why don't you look into it, General? I'll go home with you. You can take me home. I won't even wink at your daughter, I promise. But anyway, that was it. And I was offered, there was a captain in that company, and he offered, he said, "I am forced to offer you this. I don't think you like me." heck, I know he didn't like me. He offered me a position as an ADI. You know what that is, Mike? Assistant drill instructor.
Oh, 1 second. I'm going to stop this. Okay. Sorry about that little interruption.
All right. Anyway, he offered me the position of ADI. And again, I'm trying to be reasonable. I'm a 19-year-old kid, and I'm trying to be reasonable. I said, well, sir, I'd like to think about this. How long do I have? He says, you have about 3 seconds. So I looked him in the eye and said, well, it is not my policy to make decisions like this under pressure. That doesn't come to any good that I know of. So I'm going to have to turn you down. Good, get out of here. Oh, God, I would have done a lot better if they started me out as a colonel. I tell you. Anyway, so off I went and finally landed in Fort Gordon and went to teletype school and then got my orders for Vietnam. In the meantime, by the way, I lost my hearing. Seems that my ears were sensitive to a certain pitch, and that was the pitch emitted by the M16. And when we trained on the M16, it made me deafer than anything. I couldn't hear anything for at least a couple of weeks. Well, it's not true. What I heard sounded like a train driving through my head. People would talk. I couldn't hear anything. I was just stone deaf. So they sent me home on my way to Vietnam, and I went to the ear doctor, and the ear doctor says, oh, my God, they can't send you over there. So he sent me down to San Francisco, down to the Presidio. And I went in there and they go, you're going to Vietnam. Well, you know, it must have looked to them like a last ditch effort for me to get out of it. It wasn't that at all. I mean, they had destroyed my ears. And that plays into a great story, by the way, if you want to hear it.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So here I am with ear problems anyway. And I get there and I had orders for the 11th Armored Cav down in Black Horse, I think. And, but then all of a sudden, you know, they send me to the Repo Depot,
Okay.
the 90th Replacement Battalion there at Long Binh. Yeah, it was a Long Binh. And all of a sudden, you know, I get on a chopper and they send me out to the 54th Artillery Group. Well, you know, and I'm still packing now. I'm packing my M16 and I'm at a group, and that's a pretty safe place, although it was located in Swan Loc, and toward the end of the war, that there was a tremendous battle right there at Swan Loc, of all things. But when I was there, you know, the occasional mortar and stuff like that, nothing, not much of anything. I wasn't there long anyway. But I managed to get myself somehow on a convoy and up to somewhere around the 23rd evac hospital, I think, where I went to get my ears checked. And the doctor looked at me and said, you know, they checked my ears out and everything. The doctor looked at me, he goes, my God, he said, you shouldn't be over here. He said, well, look at it this way. They could have put you in the artillery. I said, they did put me in the artillery. He goes, well, that's the Army for you. He says, do you think you know of anything that would help? I go, yeah, the M16 makes me deaf. What about if you give me a prescription for an M14? He goes, well, I could do that. So he pulls out his prescription pad. He's writing it down. And I said to him, listen, any chance you could say on there that they should include an automatic selector switch? So my M14 would be an automatic rifle. He goes, oh, sure. God, I wish I had that. That would be a war memento of all war mementos. Anyway, I had that, took it to the Army. They looked at me, you know, and they gave me an M14 and a bunch of ammo. It's 7.62 ammo, so we had plenty of it around. Mm-hmm. We were firing out of our 30s anyway, plus the enemy used it. They were shooting us with it. So there's plenty of that ammunition around. So I was packing an M14. Well, anyway, one terrible night during Tet, I was running toward the wire. Well, we had a lot of incoming, a lot of small arms fire and mortars and grenades and crap. I was running toward there and I'm running by this bunker. I just happened to remember that. And I always held the thing wrapped around, if this makes sense, I'd wrap the sling around my left arm like that to hold the muzzle down, because you get a lot of muzzle rise, right, from the recoil. And the other, I had it affixed toward right on my gut, right down here, right? So I could fire the damn thing. And I'm running along, all of a sudden, wham! I get hit, and it knocks me on my butt. And I get up, and what the hell happened? And I raised my rifle up with sling, and I've got the barrel, and I've got everything metal, but it was all splinters hanging off it. So I got hit right in the side by an AK-47. I'm sure that's what it was. It had to be. Hit with an AK-47, which destroyed my M14, but saved my life.
Now, did it hit the M14 before you, or did it go through you and hit the M14?
It hit the M14.
Okay.
It hit the stock of the M14.
Okay.
Splintered it everywhere. And this guy came running out of the bunker right by me. I remember him. He wasn't very tall, and his helmet didn't fit very well. He had thick glasses on, and they were shattered. He's waving his M16 all over the place. And I said, "Where the hell are you going?" He goes, "Whoa." I said, "No, you can't see anything. You're going to shoot one of us." I grabbed his weapon from him, and I said, "Get back in that bunker and stay there. I'll tell you when it's safe." So he did. He gave me his M16 and some ammo, and off I went. But had all that not happened, that shot would have killed me that night.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's interesting.
Yeah. That's, wasn't your time, huh?
Well, I guess. But boy, I tell you, it knocked me down like a bowling pin.
But no permanent injuries from that.
No. Heck no. Just the rifle.
$1 million shot.
Well, that stock was thick. You remember those? They were thick, hard wood.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know the rest of the story. That's what I know. I was carrying it. Something knocked me over. My rifle M14 stock was in splinters. That's what I know. And I was okay. And a lot of stuff like that happened to me, such that guys, I was attached, by the way. Mm-hmm. 54th Artillery Group attached me out to different batteries. So I wasn't part of their regular battery. And but the guys out there, I remember one of them saying, Sarge, you're a great guy. We like you, but we don't want to stay around you because bad stuff happens. Just bad stuff happens. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, but here I am. Yeah, here you are. Anyway, okay. It's just odd. It was just very odd.
Now, were you just attached to that one unit, or did they frequently move you around?
Well, I was attached to the Husky Bravo, the 6th of the 36th, right? Okay. Then, after that, I was wounded while I was with them during TET.
Okay.
And I made 3 hospitals, and then after that, they gave me a chance. The major who was the commanding, he was the officer of the Signal Corps there at the headquarters group, and he.
Okay, so before we were interrupted, you were talking that the major, who was the commanding officer.
Yeah, he ran the Signal Corps for the group. And he asked me, said he had a situation in another battery, whatever that meant. I didn't know what it meant. I just know that a lot of different things had happened, including my fiance wrote me a Dear John letter, and a lot of that's okay. God bless you, honey. Hope you've had a great life. Anyway, yeah, he asked me to go down to Charlie of the 7th and 8th, and so I did. I went down there.
And how was that?
Well, frankly, God bless you, Major Avent. I thought he was running the whole war, really. I got to tell you something about Major Avent. Okay, I can't remember. It wasn't my birthday. I don't remember what it was. Something happened. Maybe he sent me a promotion or whatever. I mean, I ended up, I landed in Vietnam as an E2. I wasn't even a PFC. I'd gotten in a little bit of trouble, a scrap with some acting jack in our room. It was this nasty little kid from Alabama. And he reported me to the sergeant. And anyway, anyhow, not only got my passport, but I didn't get a promotion. Got sent over to Vietnam. I'm still in E2, but, you know, within a number of months, I'm a sergeant. You know, all I can think of really is that at times they were desperate for people who could read and write. I mean, it wasn't, there were a lot of smart kids there, don't get me wrong. That's not better than most of them, but I just happened to get promoted. Anyway, Major Avon sent me down there, but it was unnecessary. They had a guy down there. They should have promoted him. I think his name was Charlie. Hello, Charlie. Hope you see this. Anyway, Charlie was a good guy. There was just the two of us. I wasn't doing the sergeant thing to him. We just took care of our business. And then I was in a unit. We had a lot of kids. Seems like I was constantly ending up with young people who had been drafted from Philadelphia. So I was thinking of writing to the War Department to say, you know, if you want to end this war, take guns away from these kids from Philadelphia, give them tire irons, and let us go. Anyway, yeah, the things we had to do to keep people to behave. That was Charlie of the 7th 8th. That was two 107s. We called them long tubes, and they were SP, self-propelled. And then two more 8-inch guns. And then we had a couple of dusters. Those were 40 millimeters. You've heard them before. Boom, 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 boom. They're really anti-aircraft guns. Then we had a quad 52. Anyhow, that was Charlie of the 7th and 8th. And yeah, they nicknamed the place Mortar City because it was just full of holes. My God. They'd built with sandbags, etc. The mess hall was built out of thin sheeting, and it was just covered with shrapnel holes. So they were dropping rounds on us most every day. That seems like it. Maybe whatever it was way too often, and usually just one or two, but not always. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it got a lot heavier, and yeah, I had some interesting experiences there. Some that took me a very long time to deal with, matter of fact. But interestingly enough, I got there. I went down there with them. We convoyed down. Right. It was a what do we call them? Crap. March. Anyway, whatever it was, I remember writing on. This really bothered me too. I was writing up on a track up high with a bunch of other guys. And, I'm raised in a Catholic school. I mean, they really work on us to say, this is right and this is wrong. Can you tell the difference? It's a whole that's a large part of our education. It's called the formation of conscience. We're up there, and the streets would always line up for the convoys to come to. And the kids would be begging for food, little kids. Mm-hmm. And the guys on the track next to me were taking their sea rats and throwing them at the kids, not just tossing them down to them, but throwing at them, trying to beat them. And those things were heavy, and it was just rotten. I made them knock it off. Why? Why do you think that that's okay to do? They're children. They're gooks. No, man. Most of them are probably smarter than you, so you better get off the ugly American thing. This just doesn't play in Peoria. Anyhow, it really disturbed me to watch that, They're people. In fact, we were over there to help liberate them from the communists. Mm-hmm. So what's the deal with us going over there and then abusing them? Not that everybody was, don't get me wrong. But I was over there to help them. 1 million of them fled south when the communists took over. And a lot of those were Catholics, by the way. And of course, you know, it was the Democrats that were in office. You know, Kennedy's the one who ramped it up a little, and JFK put it on steroids, went from 16,000 to 500,000 with Westmoreland in charge. That was crazy. The whole idea about winning that war was nuts, and they didn't. They lost it. But we didn't lose it, by the way.
Now, where were you when the TED occurred?
Well, Chet went on for a while. It began January 31st, right? And that was 1968. And I was at Fire Support Base Anderson.
Okay.
That's where that rifle, my M14, got blown up.
Did that happen during the TED offensive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. They were trying to come through our wire that night. It was a bad night.
Okay.
A lot of things happened that night. It was a bad night.
Was that the first
And
night
a lot
you guys?
happened to me that night. It just blew me away. Well, figuratively. Came real close to blowing me away. Huh?
Was that
Pardon
the
me?
first night that you were attacked for that offensive?
Yes, like that.
Okay.
And I can't tell you what happened after that because at the end of it, they threw me on a medevac and I was gone and I never went back. I do remember lying in the hospital though, and there was a sergeant from the 54th Artillery Group. You see, when they attached me to Husky Bravo, they sent me up on a convoy and I had to call on 2nd Field Force something, right? And sign out a 3/4 ton truck with an Angry 46 unit. That's all big radio stuff and antenna, stuff like that, right? And I'm lying in the hospital. And that thing, incidentally, toward the end of this battle, went on for hours. I'm standing there with the lieutenant. Hi, Lieutenant. Thank you for your kind wisdom. And I said, look, that radio rig's on fire. I better go over there and get that darn KY8 out of there, which was the crypto machine. You know, before it explodes, we had a potassium grenade in there that was going to take the whole thing down. We're supposed to blow it up if the enemy, if there's any chance of the enemy capturing the KY8 and all the, you know, the code. It was top secret stuff. Anyway, he said, nope, don't do it. I said, really, I should do it. I mean, I'm responsible for that rig. He goes, I'm telling you, don't do it. So we're standing there and I'm arguing with him. The damn thing blows up. I think you were right. Thank you, Lieutenant. Thank you. Anyway, I've got that little card. I sent you that card, a picture of that card. It says, no enemy would dare bomb this place and end all this confusion. And on the backside, it's brown from heat and fire. Well, I don't know how it survived, period, because there's only a husk left of that whole damn 3/4 ton truck. But that was in that big box on the back of a 3/4 ton truck. And it was hanging. No enemy would dare bomb this place, and sure as hell. Yeah.
Are you willing to talk about your injuries at all?
Well, I had multiple injuries. I had a lot of shrapnel injuries. I didn't report them usually. But I had one that was, well.
Were you caught by mortar? Is that what got you?
Well, the first thing that got me, there's more than one thing that got me. They're trying to get us all night. Again, they send upstairs to their most brilliant engineers in the Army, I'm sure, and they decided that they'd put us right out kind of on a salient. They dug a big hole with a bulldozer, and we backed down into it to protect most of the vehicle and the tires and stuff. It was deep. But right next to us was a fuel truck. They put us next to a fuel truck. Brilliant, brilliant. I don't know the guy who was working for the Army, but I think his name was Jap or Ho or somebody like that. Anyway, an RPG, this is what I think, an RPG blew the tanker up.
Okay.
And I woke up, I thought I was in hell. Remember, I'm a Catholic. We have very distinct, vivid images. I thought, my God, Dante was right. Anyway, I woke up and it's just all flames. And I'd been sleeping on the front seat of the truck. Weren't supposed to, but I was. And I got out and I did a body check. That's pretty much what happens when you get into the stuff. You're doing body checks, seeing if you have all your limbs or if you're bleeding out or whatever, because you can't tell. First thing that happens usually is that your body goes into shock. Mm-hmm. So you aren't feeling the pain right away. That comes very soon. But I discovered I had a big hole in my leg. So I took my trusty little knife. I think I sent you a picture of that too. Managed to get it back home. And I cut my shirt up and I bound my leg as tight as I could to stop the bleeding.
Okay.
That was the first wound I think I got. And then my teammate, Tom Hogan. Hi, Tom. Sure would like to hear from you. Tom Hogan, he outranked me too. He had a little more time and grade, I think. Anyway, Tom got hurt. His arm got chewed up. And here's the hero I'd really want to tell you about. There was a guy in this unit. This is 6 of the 36. And this is February of 1968. There's a kid by the name of Hendricks, I think. It might have been Hendrickson, but I think it was Hendricks. I remember that he had a blondish complexion, kind of reddish, probably had kind of ginger hair, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yep. Light red hair. And he was a nice kid. I don't know what was going on with the rest of their unit. Remember, we were attached, so we really didn't know any of the gun bunnies or anybody. So he'd come over and eat dinner with us, which meant we'd break open our C rations and start trading them around and eat that. So C rations, by the way, were stamped 1936, 1937, just so you know. And this was 1968. I guess Willie and Snuffy and Sad Sack couldn't get to him in World War II. Anyhow, this kid would come over, we liked him. He was a nice kid. And oh, man. In wartime, there's always the big talkers about what they're going to do and how they're going to do this and that. Let me tell you, those are the first ones to hide. Absolutely, always. It's your ordinary little guy who goes, well, I'm just not going to fail. They're the ones that stand up for you to show the real guts. But anyway, we were stuck in this salient, this hole. I remember trying to crawl up to the top of it to return fire. And we're right next to a unit of Aussies out there. Hello, all you boys down under. I hope you see this. I do. You can call me. I love you, but I wish you wouldn't have done a couple of things. And one of those was start that damn 50 caliber blowing rounds right over my head. Anyway, I could feel those suckers. So I thought, well, I think I won't stay at the top of this hole and return fire. They've got it covered with a 50 caliber. I don't want to get my head blown off. So Tom was really in trouble, and I was trying to think of how to get him out of there. We didn't have any contact, and we were separated by a road, if you can get that. I can't give you the image. I remember it vividly. And we needed to get across the road, and there was just a small arms fire sweeping everything. But damn that this kid Hendricks didn't come flying over and blowing into our big hole. Now, this is a big hole. This is not a foxhole. I mean, they had the whole truck in it and everything. Came in and he goes, wow, he says, how are you guys doing? Well, Tom's wounded and I got to get him out of here. I got to get him to a medic, and we're no good here on this salient, We're going to get chewed up. The Aussies are firing right over us. He goes, well, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? I said, well, if you would, I'm going to lay down a lot of fire for you as much as I could along this road up at the top of the hole. I want you to get back over there and get a couple of guys, and I want you to lay down a lot of fire while I drag. Well, I didn't have to drag him. Help Tom across the road. But he was staggering a little bit. He was hurt. So we did that. He got back over there. They laid down a lot of fire, and I got Tom back. And I sat him down by on the other side of a bunker, the lee side in this part of the battle. Remember, it's a big battery. Not real big, but big enough. We had, there were 155 SPs. So, substantial piece of ground with the Aussies next to it. Anyhow, sat Tom down and I went running off, and I got about maybe 20 feet away in this huge explosion, and I'm hunkered down like this, running, going for a medic. and this huge explosion lifted me up off the ground. Never forget this. Lifted like in the movies, you know. The one difference is you don't pop up and go, "Oh, I'm okay." That's bullshit. I promise you that. Anyway, lifted me up and threw me all the way back and sat me down right next to Tom Hogan. And I'm sitting there, you know, like you just blew the snot out of me. And I start doing the body check again, and my legs all wrapped up, and I'm looking for blood. And Tom looks over at me and says, this may be the last thing I heard Tom say. Tom looked over at me and said, "Are you alive?" And I said, "I don't know yet." Which is pretty typical. I could be bleeding out for all I know. But man, I was really concussed, I'll tell you. Anyhow, I managed to get back up and find a medic. We got Tom off, and we got Tom out of there as soon as possible, but we got him some medical aid and then ran off after that. There were a whole bunch of things that happened that night. But Hendricks, I mean, you know, that kid, I remember him, I thought I had remembered him telling me he was from Paradise, and I thought he meant Paradise, California by Chico, but I've never been able to track this kid down.
Okay.
And boy, I thank you, son. You are a hero. That young man is a hero. He's the only one who came after us to help us out of that fix. He's a hero. So my hat's off to you. Or on to you with a salute, or however we do it anymore. You know, I didn't tell you this. We got up there and we got a bunch of guys, and I'm trying to get ourselves deployed along this section of the wire. They're trying to come through the wire, and we're getting some hand grenades thrown in at us. And damn it, we're behind this little hillock, and damned if a grenade didn't come in. And Hendricks was standing right next to me, and kaboom, he took the brunt of that grenade and it blew off his arm. I think it was his left arm. I think it must have been. Could have been his right. I don't remember that. Damn, that poor kid. So we got a tourniquet going on him, and I ran after to get a medic. Finally got a medic up there. I'll tell you this, so this spooked me for a long time. I found medic, and he was hiding in a bunker. So there was crap blowing up everywhere around there. And I said, "What are you doing in there? We need your help." He said, "I'm not going out there." He threw an empty grenade can at me. I said, "I'm not going out there. It's dangerous out there." And I stuck my rifle in his face and said, "No, you're wrong. It's more dangerous in this bunker. You don't get out of there now, I'm going to kill you. You know, there's a real hero up there that needs help, and you're going to hide. You rotten son of a bitch. You better watch your back." Anyway, I was irate. May I say that? Anyway, he did. He did. And I hope he kept working after that. I hope he overcame his initial fear. Anyway, so you can see why I'd love to hear from this Hendricks guy.
Oh, yeah. Now, okay, so you were injured in your leg. What other injuries did you sustain?
Oh, there was shrapnel all over, and then I got my chin laid open.
Okay.
That's a hand grenade, I'm pretty sure. But it laid my chin open from like right here down here. Just laid it open. And so I cut another piece off of my shirt. My shirt wasn't looking very good, by the way. It was a jungle fatigue, you know, and I wrapped it up over my head like this. So I got my leg bandaged. I looked like I was in the Civil War, you know. I had stuff like that. And there was no getting medevacs in there during this time. By the way, there weren't any available anyway. I mean, this was tet, and crap was blowing up everywhere. And so I managed to get around and fight to the end of the battle when we were mopping it all up. And finally, a lieutenant insisted that I get on the next dust off. And I'll tell you another story. If anybody knows the answer to this from Husky Bravo, Spit and Fire. I wrote a song for my dog, by the way, about Husky Bravo. Anyway, they took me over there, you know, and I'm limping along, and they grab me, and medevac comes in to dust off, and they take me, and they said, "Can you get one more on there?" "Oh, God, we're full up. Well, here's some space," and they threw me on there, and they threw me right on top of the kid. I thought, damn, this isn't good. And I'm sorry, guy. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get off him. And there's a guy sitting on the bench seat, you know, in those choppers right over me. And he says, oh, he don't mind none. He's dead. Oh, great. And, you know, I'd really like to know the name of that dead guy. I'd like to find him on the wall. I'd like to say a prayer for him. Mm-hmm. And that guy looked down at me and said, he don't matter none. He don't mind none. He's dead. I'd like to hear from you, too. The other thing is, in the song I wrote about the dog, a part of it goes, Husky Bravo Spitting Fire, Corporal Tobias Matthias O'Houlihan of the 6 and 36, just lower the tubes and blow them to hell. We're done with your dirty tricks. Well, the myth was that there was a village out a click or so away, 1 or 2 clicks away from where we were getting, I think, the major part of the attack. And they had to be careful with the guns, the big guns. But it was so intense that the captain, the CO, called to ask if he could use direct fire, you know, lower the tubes. And this is the story. They said, no, there's a village out there. You may not use direct fire. You cannot lower the tube. Yes, sir. He hung up and he goes, lower the tubes. And that's my captain. Yay, I don't even know your name. If you're out there, Captain, give me a holler.
Now, when you were evac, did you go to a medical ship, or did they take
you? 23rd Medevac.
Okay.
23rd, not Medevac, 23rd, what do they call it? The 23rd Evac Hospital in Saigon.
Okay.
Are you still there? Yeah, you're there. 23rd Evac Hospital, and I got moved from there. I remember they came in, a couple officers came. This is weird. A couple officers come in and they're mumbling something. They hang a Purple Heart on me, and I don't know what's happening here. Anyway, and then they left, and I thought, yeah, I could care less about that Purple Heart. By the way, you know, not to abuse Purple Heart recipients. I love you guys. I'm one of you. But isn't that something we get when we do something wrong? I mean, wasn't it George Patton said, we don't win a war by dying for our country. We win a war by making the other poor bastard die for his country. Anyway, I appreciate guys who've gotten close enough to get hurt and had the guts to stand up and do what they had to do. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, God bless you all. But anyway, they moved me from there down to Vung Tau. That was the 6th field hospital or something. It's called yeah. And then from there, after a while, they flew me out to Cameron Bay. I was out there for a while. Then I got out of there and I came back, and that's when Major Avent said, well, you returned to duty. You want to go down to another station? And the CO, incidentally, of that headquarters battery of the 54th Artillery Group called me in and he says, son, don't go. You've only got a couple months left. Don't go. You could hang out here. You've done enough. You've been hurt enough. Don't go down there. That's bad news. I said, oh, thank you very much, sir, for your concern. I'm going, by the way. He said, why would you go? I said, well, it's boring here, and my girl dumped me. Oh, what the hell? Let's go see what's popping. So that's how I ended up from Charlie of the 7th Day.
So, so you're looking for, you'd like to be put in contact with Tom Hogan.
Oh, sorts of guys. I didn't tell you. I can tell you one more story if you want to hear it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Unless you're sick.
No.
Well, I was down at Charlie. Yeah, well, I am. Anyway, I was down at Charlie of the 7th and 8th. That's with the bigger guns. Those 107s could actually shoot, I think, 21 miles on target. That's pretty good back then. Remember, this is 1968. Mm-hmm. We're not using missiles. The BC did, but they couldn't hit anything with those missiles. You had to have some bad luck to get hit by one of those missiles, by the way. And maybe somebody's going to argue that point, but the 122 millimeter missiles that we knew of that they threw, our rockets that they threw our way, they couldn't hit squat. They had a hard time hitting the compound, period. Anyway, but they were a problem if they did hit you. It was their 81, 82 millimeter mortar rounds that we were getting all the time.
Mhm.
Anyhow, I was down there at Charlie in the 7th and 8th. I remember we first got down there. I don't think I told you this, maybe I did, but I drew sergeant of the guard. And I said, well, sir, if you don't mind, I'm gonna check the perimeter. Just go outside the wire and check the perimeter. What for? Well, I just think it's prudential to go check the perimeter. All right, then. So I went and checked the perimeter, and all the Claymore mines we had out there in front of our guard bunkers had been turned around. I may be misspeaking. Maybe the people that put them in backwards. I hate to think that any of my doggy partners actually put a Claymore mine in backwards. I mean, they had raised writing all over them. Not this way, stupid. Point this side out, you know. But they were pointing the bunkers. I think actually the Vietnamese managed to turn those suckers around. They were planning to come in and do us some damage. So anyway, I righted all those. And we got mortared all the time. But all of a sudden one night or one afternoon, I was sergeant of the guard. This is bad news. I was sergeant of the guard, and I'd make my guard rounds, you know. And of course, we had I'm too old to use language anymore. We had a switchboard, right? So I could call the different guard bunkers, check in with them. And I would make rounds. I would go and visit each bunker to make sure the guys were alert. There was one on the machine gun and one sitting by his side, and a third one resting, and they would rotate, right? You could sleep with those big rats. But anyway, there was this one bunker, and there was this kid I caught on top of this bunker. It was hot. You know, this is Vietnam, and this is somewhere around summertime or fall, and it was just hot inside that stupid bunker. But it's dangerous outside on top of a bunker, by the way. Everything's quiet until everything's not quiet, and then you're in big dirt, deep trouble. But the kid, you know, I'd kick him inside the bunker. Well, I probably had to take him off that roof and put him back inside that guard bunker 3 times. And all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. And I mean, they were just raining mortars down on us and all this other shit happening. And it felt like they were softening us up and maybe they were going to make an attack. I didn't know. I hit the keyboard, the switchboard right away to check to make sure our commo was in good working order. And of course, stupid, I think anyway, but we didn't have the radios back then. They were just coming out with these VH radios. So there were a lot of land wire. Mm-hmm. We had to run wired, all the different, and you know, mortars play hell with that. They just blew them all up. So I couldn't get through to the guard bunkers. And I thought, uh-oh. And there was a lieutenant back in there with me at the time. And another fellow too, and I can't remember who it was. But the lieutenant, who I called the cherry lieutenant, he was brand new. He had rosy cheeks and his fatigues were too green. You know, that's all. We called them all cherry lieutenants or cherry boys, new people. Anyway, the cherry lieutenant was back there and shit's coming down everywhere. We can't reach anybody. And I start putting on a flak jacket and a helmet. I thought it was a good time to wear those things. Grabbed my rifle and he said, "Where do you think you're going?" I said, "I got to go out and check these guard bunkers, make sure these guys know what's up. We don't have any communication with them whatsoever. And we don't want to get blindsided somewhere." And he said, "You can't go out there." I said, "I have to go out there." He said, "I'm ordering you not to." He said, "Court-martial me afterwards, okay?" So I go tearing out the door.
Well,
Shit,
we're coming up against our time, so I do want to make sure that you can say who
I'll get right through this one then.
Sure.
Okay, so I ran out and checked the bunker and made sure the guys knew how to yell to the gun bunnies who could yell over to us, etc., yada yada. And I ran through really heavy incoming over to this bunker where that kid kept getting up on top, and there he was lying in the door with his throat blown out. And he wasn't dead yet. He was blue. And there was nothing I could do for him. I didn't remember anything in first aid saying, well, here's how you save somebody that doesn't have any throat. You know, I didn't know how to blow air into his brain. So anyway, he was dying on me like that. And I looked inside, the guys in the bunker, they're scared like hell. And they're trying to use the phone where the lines are all out. Anyway, I got the medic out there, and we got that taken care of. Finally, it was over, and we got the kid back in. He was dead. And then the CO, the captain, calls me back into the bunker, into the Tactical Operations Center, and starts dressing me down and saying, this is your fault. This kid's dead because you were negligent. Blah, 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 blah. And I said, sir, that's not true, sir. I kicked this kid back into the bunker at least 3 times. He had no respect for authority whatsoever. He wouldn't do what he was told, and he paid for it. How do I know that? I said, why don't we call for the guards in his bunker, send a couple guys out there to replace him? All right. By the way, if you want me to do the rest of your job, I'd be happy anyway. So he did that. And that cherry lieutenant I told you about, he said, Captain, he said, this guy went out in the middle of a lot of danger, a lot of incoming. He risked his life to make sure we are all okay. You should be giving him a medal instead of threatening him with a court martial. Well, the bunker guards came in and they told the captain, yeah, he just wouldn't do what he was told. The sergeant kept telling him to get back in the bunker and stay there, and he wouldn't do it. Well, that was the end of that. But you know, that hurt deeply, I got to tell you. Risk my life, and then you've got an officer threatening to court-martial you for it. And I can't tell you how many times I bet that happens in the military. But again, the cherry lieutenant. If you're out there, I'm sorry to call you cherry lieutenant. You were just brand new. I think you're a hero too. You had a lot of guts. You went back with us to check the body later, and the body groaned when we lifted up to get his wallet out. I remember you jumped, but that's okay. You're a hero to me.
If any of your friends see this and want to get in touch with you, how do you want them to reach out to you?
Well, my email is papajustus@mac.com. I spell PAPAJUSTUS at Mac. I spell MAC.com. That's my email. My phone number, 707-499-1005.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out to talk with us. You know, I really do appreciate all your stories. If you ever want to come back on again, let me know. We'd love to have you on again. Maybe next time we can do something live. But I really hope that you know, some of the people that you're looking for see this and reach out to you.
Oh, I hope so. All the guys from the 54th Artillery Group Headquarters Battery, you know, all those Chavez and Tuckman and Arty and all those fellas, and just on and on and on. And another fella from Fort Huachuca, his name was Simmons. I'd love to hear from you. You're a hero too, by the way. Popovich and Darling, all of those characters. So anyway, thank you, Mike. It's very kind, old man, tell the stories.
And yeah, if you like I said, you want to come back on, tell some more stories, let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, when can we expect this? Is it going to air when?
You know, I'm not sure because it will take me a couple weeks to edit it, but I will get you a copy of it when it does go.
All right, that's great. Thank you very much.
No, thank you again for joining us, and you know, for you and for everyone who's watching. As always, thank you for being worth serving.
Bye, Mom.